What's up guys, I'm back behind the desk and I want to just start this video out by saying that if your goal is to realize your potential in the maximum snatch and the maximum clean and jerk, I believe that you should compete. Before many of the hobbyists out there scoff, please allow me to explain using good old periodization. So first, let's take a look at periodization training for sports. This is written by Tudor Bompa, who's widely known as kind of the pioneer of the theory of periodization, and he's a big name in the strength and conditioning world. This book is based around the idea that if you're training to peak at a certain point, or if you're training to maximize your potential in any given sport, you should have 3 phases. The first is the preparatory phase, then the competitive phase, and then lastly, the transitional phase. So this book is more centered around athletes that have a competitive season. The idea isn't to just peak for one moment in that season, as they have multiple competitions that are kind of strung along back to back. The conversation in this book becomes a little bit more about the maintenance of performance over the competitive season. Luckily in weightlifting, for the most part, there's only one competitive moment that you need to peak for. And that's why we're gonna go and look at this book, Managing the Training of Weightlifters by Laputin and Oleshko. Here it is. It's got based Ilya on the front. This book takes a lot of the ideas in this one and just a lot of general ideas around training and puts it specifically and pointedly towards the sport of weightlifting. Before we dive into this book, I want you guys to know that this is not simply 2 authors voicing their opinions. They are regularly citing sources from some of the most highly touted, giants in strength and conditioning. Guys like Verkhoshansky, Zagorski, Medvedev, Petrovsky, Kukolevsky, the list goes on, and they're consistently citing sources from those guys. And before we dive into this book, I want to talk about where I see mainstream / hobbyist and kind of that in-between area of weightlifting as a whole right now. You'll scroll through Instagram, you'll see PRs, you'll see CrossFitters, bodybuilders, powerlifters. People are starting to snatch and clean and jerk more than ever. There are more practitioners of the snatch and the clean and jerk than there ever have been before. And in my opinion, this is definitely a net positive. But what I'm beginning to see is more and more people enter into what I call training purgatory. Now, the preparatory, competitive, and transitional phase that is talked about in this, it is likened to what Laputin and Oleshko call the growth of trainability, achievement of sporting form, and then finally the decrease in trainability. In my opinion, if you're a beginner, learn the lifts, get comfortable with the snatch and the clean and jerk, and just have fun. If you're in that intermediate phase where you have the proprioceptive skill, you have the neuromuscular pathways to snatch and to clean and jerk confidently, then let's up your trainability or the growth of trainability. And when I mention trainability and when they mention trainability in here, it's really just that growth in work capacity with heavier loads. And typically that heavier load range is gonna be from the 80 to 90% range. If you're looking to take that step from the intermediate to advanced area, and a lot of people who are just looking to become proficient in the lifts, I believe that they're looking to become advanced. If that is you, then you need to take that leap into acquiring sporting form. In that stage, the acquiring of sporting form works symbiotically with the decrease in trainability, or in Bompa's case, the transitional phase. I believe that this leap to thinking about a singular point in time wherein you must perform a maximal snatch and a maximal clean and jerk really scares people away because of the pressure of failure or the fact that they do not know the outcome before they get into it. However, what's argued in this book is that if you do not have a moment in time where you peak and you focus on maximizing your ability at one point, you can become overtrained. And this leads lifters down a really road. If your goal was to become proficient in a new sport that you sucked at, now that you've become proficient, whatever that is, it becomes harder and harder to break through plateaus or even hit numbers that you used to hit. You may end up convincing yourself that this sport isn't for you, and because you've told yourself that you're proficient enough, you may give up on it. This may not happen within 12 weeks, it might not happen within 24 weeks, But further down the line, 36 weeks, entering on a year of training, this can absolutely happen, and I've seen it happen multiple times. Here is why acquiring sporting form is a very, very important piece, and it revolves around the unknown. So to quote Loputin and Oleshko directly, one can say that sporting form is one of the stages in the development of trainability. Sporting form corresponds to the highest level of trainability. That goes inside with the idea that trainability secures achievement of some results, but not always the highest results. And I think this is a really key quote here because many people from the CrossFit, bodybuilding, powerlifting world, they want to work their way to PRs. And the answer to many failures is that they just want to put in more work. The idea is if I can train at a certain level, I can PR within that level at any given time. It's basically like I'm trying to secure the unknowable or hedge my bets to that point in time where I have to perform maximally. And so when Loputin and Oleshko say that this secures achievement of some results, that's basically what they're talking about. They're talking about the person that works very hard in the growth of trainability phase, but they can only secure some results, and then at a certain point, they can't break through those plateaus or they can't hit the numbers they used to hit. And what's interesting about achieving sporting form or taking that leap into going on a competition floor is that it works, like I said before, with that transitional phase or the decrease in sporting form. Loputin and Oleshko again say, as a result of the strains of training and competition, fatigue accumulates. A protective reaction arises against the overstraining of accommodating mechanisms. If under these conditions one attempts to improve sporting form, then one can become overtrained. Usually people think that the answer to not breaking through plateaus or just getting better in general is to work hard. In doing so, they could have surpassed that leap to sporting form and they should have already detrained, and now they're kind of jumping back into that growth of trainability phase when they're not ready, and subsequently they can become overtrained. And this is usually what occurs when people hit plateaus. They didn't steadily build their growth of trainability, take that leap to competitive, to achieving sporting form, and then transition. They just kind of blurred all of those together. So there are two main responses I get from people when I tell them that they should compete. Well, the first one that I get is people feel like they don't need to actually enter in a competition. They can kind of create that competitive atmosphere in their own gym. They pick a certain date to peak, and they would train as if it's a competition, and they would just get in the gym and max out on that day. Now, my response to that is one option, but to me, it's not ideal. If we're looking at the achievement of sporting form, and you're considering hitting that, and you're not considering competing in the sport, to me, it seems a little bit conflicting. The environment you can create when you compete is truly magical. Hopefully you have a coach that is coaching you through the meet, and that is someone that is dependent on you, that you're dependent on. You can get some stimulus off of them. You have people loading the bar for you. You have 3 judges. You have a time frame in which you have to lift. You walk out on stage. There's a bar waiting for you. It's dead silent. There's a crowd watching. That is something that is magical. And until you've actually done it, do not count it out. A lot of this has to do with your mentality. Now, a lot of people are very comfortable training in their own gym, but what you need to do is focus on achieving that extra stimulus to perform as a competitor. There is absolutely nothing better than competing against yourself, against others, in front of your family, in front of your friends. The second response I usually get when I tell people to compete is that I want to snatch X and clean and jerk Y before I think about competing. And my response to that is it really depends on what stage you are. If you're in that beginner stage and you say I want to snatch X and snatch Y, you really shouldn't be thinking about numbers. You should just be thinking about being able to step into the gym and snatch or clean and jerk properly at any given time. If you're comfortable in the movement, if you're an intermediate lifter, if you have a maximum snatch and a maximum clean and jerk already, then there is no reason for you to want to hit something before competition. use the competition as a time to hit that thing. This is kind of that comparative mentality. If everyone else in your session is hitting this number, well, I don't want to be the weak guy in my session or the weak girl in my session. There's no reason that you should be looking at any other numbers other than the ones that you can improve within your own reach. It takes too much energy to train really hard to hit a certain number and then train again so that you can try to replicate or pass that on the platform. In closing, I think that people just really need to respect weightlifting as a sport. It's okay to be a hobbyist. It's okay to be interested in the snatch and the clean and jerk. But once we kind of enter this discourse, this discussion of I'm frustrated with not being able to hit certain numbers, and you never even compete or you never even plan to peak at a certain phase, and you're not achieving sporting form and you're not taking deloads and you're not tapering correctly, well, then you're really complaining just for complaining's sake. Go out there, find a competition, go compete, push yourself. There's no excuses, just improve. Play me out. That's it.